record on this computer. We're going to talk about the final project. Okay, so let's see. Checking according to Canvas, I think the Pig Lab was due today, but if you need more time on it, please let me know. You don't want to necessarily spend too much time on it. Whoopsie. Okay. Almost popped up the grades. That would have been not fun. But the let's see. Okay. So yeah, we've got your labs, and I'll post quiz 6 soon. I'm not going to make it due too soon. Final project, let's see. So yeah, try to get this in as soon as possible. Let me go ahead and also answer a question I was getting online. So edit. A number of things to drop. 1, never drop pig. So I want pig turned in no matter what. Okay. But otherwise you can turn in stuff. Notice that there's also a bunch of other assignments that are coming later on. Don't worry about those. I'll talk about them in a minute. But they're all optional. And they're a great way for you to make up points at the end of the semester. Okay. I have this due specifically because, I have this due a bit earlier than normal, due April 1st, the pre-proposal in GitHub, just that because I have a timeline and I didn't want to push back things too far. You should, and over the next couple of days, I'll be talking, and weeks, I'll be talking about final projects, kind of expectations, as well as other things. But we have 4 different things for our final project, which I'll go over in a second. So we have 4 phases to the final project. So believe it or not, you are actually have gotten to the point where you are competent at programming. It may feel like you are, that you're still a novice, and you are, but you're kind of like, you're kind of like a novice superhero. You don't know your own strength yet, it's the matter of like, you've learned enough that you actually can do quite a bit. Somebody asked, what about the Runestone quizzes? So yeah, quiz 5, let's see. Runestone Academy. Okay. Assignments. So I have this due on quiz 5. Do people need me to push it back? Yes? Okay. Let me go ahead and go to assignments, instructor pages, assignments. Let's see. Quiz 5. Okay, I'll make that due Sunday the 3rd. So I'll push that back to Sunday evening. Save. And I'll go ahead and put up, well, let's see, quiz 6. When did I want that due? Let's do that on June. For the final exam, I will get into that, but I will talk, but the topics that we're going to be covering in lecture will also be covered in the final, will be things that are relevant to the final exam. The final exam is cumulative, but they're cumulative in the sense that you learned for loops and now you can't stop using them, right? So of course you're going to use a for loop on the final exam. Let's see. Make that due the 17th. And time limit. This should take no more than an hour. Save. This. Oh, yeah, sorry. I should be sharing my screen, I guess. Oh, that's embarrassing. Okay. Save. All right, now that we've got that set up and those quiz dates moved back a bit, let's talk about the final project. So final project is worth 10% of your grade. It is a total of 135 points. 35. So the final project submission itself is worth 100 points, and 35 of those points are on the milestones, which go up progressively. 5 points for the proposal in the GitHub lab. That's due on the 1st, which is in a couple days on Friday. So, and I'll be walking through that today. Then the proposal, which is where you're actually going to commit to what you're doing, which I'll also go over today. The progress report is worth 20 points, which is due a week before your final project, which is basically you telling me, yeah, we're on target to make it. Nope, 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 we're crashing, burning. And then finally, the final project itself. So first off, I should mention that I'm way more interested in the journey as opposed to the destination. I'm going to try to make sure you don't bite off more than you can chew. But if you do, and you don't finish, as long as you have something to show me and showed me that you learned something, right? Then you'll pass the final project, okay? So it's like, what I want to see is, did you learn something? Did you find out that basically you needed to do, you wanted to do G, but before you could do G, it turned out you had to do A, B, and C. In order to do A, B, and C, you had to learn D, E, and F first, right? And if you can show me that, and that you did that, and you learned D, E, and F, but you couldn't do A, B, C, so as a result, you couldn't do G, but you did D, E, and F, and D, E, F, it was a lot of work anyway. I'll probably be pretty happy with that. Knowing there's a lot of unknown unknowns when you start doing this. This project is essentially throwing you into the deep end and basically making sure that and I want to show you, surprise you and show you can swim. I'm not necessarily expecting you to swim across the British Channel or the English Channel, but I want to show that you can swim and hold your head above water. So in general, what kind of things would I enjoy seeing for a final project? Things that are integrated with hardware are always fun, and I'll give you some examples. So Raspberry Pi with trip lasers, buttons, if you push something that make an announcement, something with Legos is always fun. So those are kind of hardware things. Building anything that's basically hardware is always fun. That's not nearly as hard as it seems because a lot of things are built to be controlled by Python these days. Games are a good one. Always making a classic game like Snake or Donkey Kong or Space Invaders or Pong. You can recreate an old arcade classic 2D game. But if you do one that already exists, like Pong or Donkey Kong, you want to put your own spin on it, like add power-ups, add, maybe it's 4-player Pong, okay? And instead of trying to point up scores, you're trying to not lose lives, you know? Maybe if it's, if it's Tetris, maybe it's, one variation of Tetris I like is rather than like lines clearing, what you're doing is that the blocks are coming from all sides of the screen, and you're building basically a square in the center, and you're trying to make sure that, and you're trying to keep it so your little ball of pieces isn't going out of bounds, it stays in bounds for as long as possible. Sounds weird, I know, but it's just making a different spin on games is pretty awesome. So if you already, you can also build your own program in Unity or Unreal 3D, right? If you wanted to learn, if you are interested in game development and you wanted to learn how to build a game in Unity or Unreal, or you just want to learn how to do like some basic hello world to get started, this is your chance. This is your excuse to get started with it and get an A, in a project in a class, just for doing what you wanted to do. So if you're interested in game development and want to learn Unreal or Unity, now's your chance, okay? If you enjoy playing a game like Skyrim or Stellaris or Stardew Valley, okay, one of those games that, and what do these games have in common? They're moddable and they're very friendly to modders. Making a mod for a video game, which is basically a player-made module in the game that kind of just sticks in and adds extra contents made by players for other players. It's a way for the community of players to get back to the game they love. These things are very popular in Skyrim. They're very popular in Stardew Valley. They're very popular in Stellaris. There's tons of people who love mods. Mods can sometimes be a stepping stone to a company like looking at you and going, wow, this was a great idea. Why didn't we put this in the game in the first place? We should probably hire this person, right? So there are, that's of course the 1 in a million shot, but you've got a lot of people. 1 in a million comes up quite a bit. So, if games are always something that I'm very flexible on. An example of what I don't want to see: Hangman. Unless you make a version of Hangman that cheats so that the player can't win. Or I don't want to see Wordle. I want to see a variation of Wordle. Like, I don't want to see Wordle. Wordle's been done. Everybody knows Wordle. What I'd be interested in if I saw Wordle would be Quad Wordle, which if you haven't seen that, so Quordle. Which does 4 Wordle puzzles at once. So if I put in Talon, put in all 4, and I'm trying to solve 4 puzzles at once here. So it's try playing it if you're interested in Wordle and you want to see why this is like a spin and why it feels like playing a completely different game, even though it's the same. Or similarly to the idea of Hangman, you can't win. This one is one that I do in data structures. So if you want to get a taste of what we do in data structures, you can certainly try this, making your own version of this. Absurdle, which is a game of Wordle, which cheats. So let's go ahead. Notice that there isn't a limit to the number of guesses here. So if I go with Talon and it tells me I'm completely wrong. If I'm going with Frame, also doesn't tell me I'm completely wrong, tells me I've got an E. So I'm just going to give up, and it's going to say it was Giver. Actually, I'm not going to give up. Wait, no, I'm going to give up. It's going to say the word was berry. It never actually commits to a word, is the idea behind this. It just has the pool of words and plays basically 2,000 games of Wordle all at the same time, and then gives you an answer that would allow it to play the most games with you for the longest period of time. So doing something like that, that sounds very tough. It's actually not. We do it for homework. We do something like this for homework in 2168. But you already know all the tools you need for this. We use the dictionary for this one a lot. So those are ideas of games. Games, or if not Wordle, then something that's similar, some other kind of word game. Those are fun. In general, if it amuses me for a minute, you're going to get an A. Okay, it's fairly straightforward on that one. And I'm very easily amused. Okay. So what about if you don't want to do a game? What if you're interested in doing, more practical things. Like you want to try doing mobile app development. If you wanted to develop for the iOS, now's your chance to learn. Or same for Android. Now's your chance to learn. And in fact, I have linked to a tutorial that tells you how to build different apps on the game on the phone. One for Android, one for iOS. I'll note that you need a Mac in order to program on iOS, by the way. So, but it will have all these, it has an introduction on how to do these, on how to build an app in Xcode. And yes, it says it's been deprecated, but these YouTube videos are still good as to how to build these things. Or maybe you want to try to learn how to build a web page, a dynamic web page, in which case I have 2 starter projects for you to learn. Any of these can be used as the basis, not only for, so if you're completely stumped, any of these in these tracks can be used as the basis for a final project. You can't just turn it in and say, this is my final project. I'm not going to like that. But you can say, hey, I started with Pong and then I did something else with it. Okay. Or I started with the 50-gram app, which was, which is a game that, sorry, it's not a game. It's like making an Instagram. So I built my own Instagram filter app and I added more functionality to it. Or yeah, I built a home page, but I made it my home page and made it really fancy and made it professional looking and made it good. Or I made a dynamic web page. This one is basically a stock buying simulation game, kind of website. So adding something to that, again, makes it the idea. So you can use any of these as the starting point, and doing these would be worth 100 points of you turning in one of these tracks, which takes about 2 weeks worth of work, is worth 100 points of extra credit on the assignment. So that's a good place to do it. You can only turn in one of them for 100 points of extra credit, I should mention. So just be aware. Also, we'll have a regex extra credit assignment, which I need to change the date for. Let me change that, so that's also extra credit, and that is useful because regular expressions will really help you on one of the questions on the exam. So if you're not interested in doing that, then you can always do the extra credit, which will basically, if you can do the extra credit assignment, you'll be ready to do stuff, to answer 35 points on the exam. Pretty nice and pretty easily. Okay. Do I have a tutorial for Xcode? Again, you'll want to, the iOS track will go over Xcode and how to use it. Okay. I don't own a Mac, so I don't know how to use Xcode or specifically with it, but honestly, one editor is not too different than any other editor. Okay, so let's get into the phases. Okay. So first off, this is optionally collaborative, not mandatorily collaborative, optionally collaborative. Because I know people, I know some people really hate group projects, really hate having to depend on other people who may or may not, may or may not be responsive. So you are perfect. So you are allowed to form a group up to 3. You can have 1 person in your group, 2 people in your group, or 3 people in your group. Doesn't matter to me. If you do have more people in the group, I expect maybe a bigger project, right? Because there's more people, you can do more work. But the idea here is that it is, a way to, what our ultimate goal is that you build something of interest to you, you solve an actual problem, you impact campus, or you change the world. Any of those. something of interest to you. Doesn't have to be interesting to me. If it's interesting to you, that's what matters. You may implement your project in any language as long as I approve it, as long as we approve it, any language. So basically, so long as we can run it and it's not something that's basically going to break because it's brand spanking new, it's good. You can use anything you need. You can use any infrastructure or tools you need, so long as we can see, so long as we could basically reproduce it ourselves. Okay. Okay. Now, for those of some of you are juniors or seniors and you have a final project in another class, you're allowed to double dip. Some professors don't like that, which is okay. So in order to double dip, basically say, I'm going to use my final project in one class as the final project in another class. You got to get approval from me and your other professor. So the way to do that, send me an email. Send an email to both me and your professor requesting that you can do this as your final project. Make sense? Okay, so what do we need to do for the final project? Okay, what are what are those phases? Is that? Pretty sure I wrote more on that. Okay. Is this actually, ooh, this may be an out-of-date syllabus. I might have the more up-to-date one on campus then. Modules. Yeah, it's definitely the more out-to-date one because I put some disclamatory language on it. Okay. There we go. All right, so you have 4 deliverables: brainstorming and GitHub. That's your pre-proposal. Basically what you do before you propose something. It's brainstorming. That's what you're doing, turning in on Friday. You don't have to commit to an idea. You just have to commit to brainstorming an idea. Make sense? So next is the proposal. What are you going to do? And I'll go through the documents for both of these in just a second. Progress report. What do you have to done, and do you need to adjust our expectations? Your final project is the submission is your source code. And because we can't schedule demos with everybody, what you're going to do is a video walkthrough of not of your code necessarily. You don't need to walk through your code. What I need to see is basically a walkthrough of your project. Just basically, hey, this is what I built and this is why it's cool. Okay. Or this is why I built. This is why I found it interesting. Or this is what I built. I had some trouble with it. This is the parts that give me trouble, but these parts work. And this is what I learned. And a README file, because that's always polite, telling us how to use your stuff. Can you change your idea after submitting the first step? Yes, but you need to get email. You got to get approval from me very quickly in order to change those ideas. Once we get to the progress report, it's a bit late. So the final project and all parts of it must be uploaded and worked on using GitHub, because I had a lot of students who did not submit their stuff on GitHub, even though that was a requirement last time. Why GitHub? Because it's really useful and it kind of eliminates the dog ate my homework for your final project. If it's on GitHub, your system crashes, your computer's unusable, your work's still there, it's fine. Here's the more important bit though. Furthermore, if you have not turned in a proposal by the time the progress report is due, okay? So let's take a look at our modules for a second. The proposal is due April 6th, okay? The progress report is due April 18th. So if you have not turned in a proposal by the time that by the 18th, we're just going to give you a 0 for the final project, because you haven't even gotten to the stage where you said, this is what I'm going to do. Right. And this is because I've just had so many, this is the way it worked out for every time that this has happened. Student goes, oh God, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go, well, that's not enough for a final project. Oh God, oh God, oh God. Okay, I'm going to do something like this. Can I have an extension? No, it's clearly laid out in the syllabus what the lay policy is. Okay, Okay, I've turned something in. You copy pasted this from a website online. I found it very easily. I have to do an academic misconduct write-up now. Thanks for the extra paperwork. That's how it went literally the past 2 semesters with the one student who decided, it's a different student each time, I should mention, who decided that what they would do to not turn in a proposal by until the very end. Okay. That's why, because I just don't want to deal with that. And I don't want to deal with the student like frantically searching online and hoping they can fool me from not seeing that they plagiarized something. Okay. All right. So the due date for the final project is hard unless you've got some weird kind of thing going on, some like medical issue or really terrible catastrophic personal issue or familial issue. The deadline is hard, which is that it's due midnight the last day of class, which is April 25th. Okay. There is a late penalty. Every minute it's late is basically a 10th point off. So if you turn in an hour late, it's going to be 6 points off. So basically, yeah, so prior approval, accommodation, or sudden and documented emergency or event. Every email that I receive 6 hours before basically the deadline will basically me being going, no, you should have reached out to me last week. Or, oh my God, are you still alive? Wait, you sent me the email. You're still alive. Okay, that's good. Obviously, you should focus on being alive rather than, the final project. That is kind of the scope we're looking at here. So basically, car accident, you got sick, those are the kind of things that we'll look at for like extensions. Death in the family, you can have an extension. But those are the kind of things where I'll need documentation at that point. Okay. So having said all that, I don't mean to scare you. What I'm trying to do is I'm interested in the journey, not the destination. It's meant to be a learning experience, not a tech startup. Okay. I want you to have fun. Okay. So let's look at what we need to turn in for the pre-proposal and proposal, and then we'll go through how I might actually turn them in. Okay. So the pre-proposal is a .md file, and I saw on Discord people were having some trouble opening it up. So, right, if you can't open it up, so first off, like if you're on, first off, you may not have it registered properly. Like it's a .md file, which is short for .markdown. So it's really just a text file, so you can open it up in any text editor. For instance, even though it's not a Python file, I could go into idle and I can go open, and over here, rather than for Python files, instead of saying all Python files, I'll do all files, go to my desktop, and I can open the file in here because it's a text file. Make sense? Okay. But if you open up in Visual Studio Code or something, or Notepad, so like I can open up in Notepad or Visual Studio Code, I can edit it. Also, if you follow the directions that I'm going to give out in a couple minutes on how to do this, if you go to your GitHub repository, okay, so here was the one I was doing a couple days, if I go over here and hit here I have another Markdown file, okay, the README file on here. And what you'll notice is that I can hit this pencil button to edit the file in the browser. So you can edit the Markdown file on GitHub itself if you upload it to your GitHub repository. Okay, so let's look at this Markdown file, and then we'll go through the kind of the idea of filling it out on GitHub. So proposal, what ideas do you have for your final project, right? So maybe say like, Space Invaders type game, but with different ammo types, maybe, right? In Space Invaders, right? So remember, so like Space Invaders, right? If you remember that game, just simply you move side to side, you have little like walled shield domes that you can shoot through that also block enemy shots. And you basically have only one type of laser to shoot down the enemy aliens. So maybe if I press maybe I'll just use left and right to move, Z shoots and X shoots changes the kind of shot I'm using. So maybe Z is so maybe 1 is my unlimited regular laser that just shoots a single shot in a straight line, just like in the original game, but maybe I have 10 shots of like a shotgun-like thing. Or maybe I have one that basically lasts for like a big laser beam that lasts for a bit longer that can hit lots of enemies, you know? So changing up your kind of shots. Or maybe let's see. Let's see, maybe a Discord bot that links to Wikipedia, or maybe a Discord bot. So yeah, if you want to do Discord bot, that's also Discord bot that drops links for my mobile game I'm really into. I'm not actually really into any mobile games, but but we had some students who were into mobile games, and so they built a Discord bot that they could just simply do a exclamation and command, and it would pull up the information from like the big wiki on that stuff. Discord, yeah, I don't see a Discord music bot, sure. You could also do a Discord bot like for like telling you when graphic cards are in stock, you know? So those are kind of so Discord bots in general, pretty cool. If you plan on collaborating with 1 or 2 classmates, what are their names? Alice and Bob, because those are your metasyntactical names in computer science. And do we have any questions of your own? No. So what I'll do now is that I've written this up. So how do I get this onto my GitHub repository? There's 2 ways I can do this, right? The first way is I can go to my GitHub folder. So I can go to, hold on, I can go to teaching, sorry, I can go to GitHub. That's where my so my GitHub stuff is in documents, GitHub, and then spring 2022 demo. And I could just, you know, drop the file in here, right? So the pre-pull, so I could just simply copy this. Yeah, you could totally make a card game. And then run the GitHub app. And it will automatically say, hey, there's a new file there, right? See, it detected the file. So I'm going to go ahead and take it out, though. Okay. The other way you can do it is you can go over here to whatever your repository is and click on Add File, Upload Files. And you can make changes and commits that way. Proposal. Now, for your final project, it only needs to be on one person's repo. That's kind of the point of having a repository, is that you can all work on a repository, the same repository, and make changes to the code without making big conflicts to other people's codes. So you can see it's there now. And now if I open up my GitHub app, I can pull it. Sorry, I can do fetch. Fetching says, hey, are there any changes? And it says, yes, there is a change. And then I hit pull origin and boom. It recognizes that the file has been changed. So really what you have to do for Friday or by Friday is to fill out that form. Okay. Fill out that brainstorming form and upload it to GitHub just so that you simply can show that you know how to use GitHub. Make sense? So what about the actual proposal itself? The actual one that's worth twice as many points, 10 points, and where you actually are gonna mostly commit to something. So this is the proposal itself. So here you've got a bit more questions to ask, but they're not too bad. What will likely be the final title of your project, right? So that gives me one sentence, the idea of what's going on, like Super Space Invaders or Discord Disco Bot, right? Yes. For the proposal, yes, but for the proposal itself, you can all link to the same document. Wait, actually, let me see what I said. Let's see. I think I said, yeah, if you're planning on collaborating, yes. So you can all turn in the same thing for this last second one, but let's see. There we go. In a sentence or two, summarize your project. E.g., a website that lets you buy and sell stocks. Obviously, you can't buy and sell stocks. Probably that would making that kind of website would have, would be kind of difficult because you'd have to deal with money transfer stuff and that gets complicated. But like simulating buying and selling stocks, that sure is doable. In a paragraph or more, detail the project. What will it do? What features will it have? How it will be executed? If you're planning on combining it with another course's final project, which other course? So example of this, which may surprise you. Say you're in a music composition class and you need to write a final composition for that class. There are certainly a lot of ways to do that, and I'd be happy to show you how to do different applications that algorithmic composition apps, or maybe you are using or maybe you have an art final project and you want to try using machine learning to generate art, right? So computational creativity is always something I like to encourage. Or maybe it's an engineering course and you have to do some big engineering final project. Fine, just let me know. If you're planning on collaborating with one or two classmates on the file project, list their names, emails, addresses, and their the TAs that they're assigned to below. Okay. So here's the big, and here is where you get to cover. You get to basically set expectations. In the world of software, most everything takes longer to implement than you would expect. You probably know this at this point. So it's not uncommon to accomplish less in a fixed amount of time than you hope. In a sentence, list of features, define what a good outcome for your final project will be. What are you aiming to do no matter what? I'm going to make a Space Invader style game. Or I'm going to make a 3D, I'm going to make the basis of a game in Unity where my player can move around and collect items, right? In a spooky environment. In a sentence, list or features a better outcome for your final project, i.e. what do you think you're actually going to be able to do? What will you do versus what do you think you can get done? Does that make sense? What will you do versus what do you think you can get done? I'm going to make a 3D game in a spooky environment where I'm trying to collect some items while a spooky monster chases me. And then finally, in a sentence, define a best outcome for your final project. What do you hope to accomplish before the final project's deadline? And I don't expect you to be able to do this, and getting an A is not contingent on this being accomplished. This is just simply, if the stars align and everything goes perfectly, which it won't, what will it look like? What is your dream? Does that make sense? In a paragraph or more, outline your next steps. What do you need to learn? What do you need to do? What do you need to research? If you're working with classmates, who's going to do what? So basically, if you're making a game and one person's job in that game is simply to make assets, what assets are they going to make? I mean, by assets, I mean like if they're going to make the models and the music or the sprites, right? Those kind of things. What about crypto or stock trading bots? Sure. So my plan, by the way, is on so I don't, yeah, it's too soon to do it on Thursday, but on Tuesday, the 5th, my plan for that day, okay, is, and that might be a day that's better suited to do this online, but my plan for that day is simply to basically check in with every single one of you, if possible, to basically ask, what is your idea, and tell you whether or not that's crazy. I'm not actually going to tell you whether or not it's crazy. I'll tell you, I think it's too little. I think it's too much. I think maybe if you just do this part, that part is realistic. Ooh, that sounds interesting. Those kind of comments. Basically, I'm just Tuesday is gonna be reserved for me to sanity check your brainstormed ideas before you submit your proposal. Make sense? Or sorry, next Tuesday. So, your actual, let's see. So let's see, your action, and now the progress report, which is due a week before, will look something like this. Again, so name, who's your group leader, if there is one, what have you done so far, what have you not done so far, what problems, if any, have you encountered? Basically giving me just a progress update. Okay. If you need to alter your plan, email your section leader. That was their term for the person who wrote this, their term for the TA. Okay. So with that, let me kind of just show you an idea. I was talking about hardware earlier. Okay. So two things I need to mention beforehand. The incentive for you to do really well. The best projects get to skip the final. That's your incentive. The best, not the best, the people with the best project. It's not limited to the number of people. The best groups that determined in the project get to skip the final project. Typically what I do is, and the way this works, by the way, is I ask your TAs for a short list of what they consider the best projects in their section. And then I will select at least one from each section. And if I can't make a decision as to like one section or another, I will choose multiple groups because I'm a nice guy like that. So, we've had things as diverse as somebody making a Lego robot that alters its face based on what it sees. We've seen somebody make a automated process for signing in people at his dojo. So basically, rather than having to enter in the stuff manually, it opens up the web form and takes all the scanned card numbers and puts them in. He basically controls the web browser with Selenium and enters in all that stuff. An idea, one of the ones. Back in like 2015, I was one of the judges of a hackathon. And that was and basically the best new project that we saw was a website that basically had a bunch of GIFs from Nicktoons playing in the background in full screen. So Cat Dog, if you remember that show, or Ren and Stimpy, basically GIFs from Nickelodeon cartoons. And they all those GIFs had in common were that there was food involved in those GIFs. And all the website had was a button, basically saying, I want that. And so if you click the button on that specific thing, if it was a hot dog, it would open up a Google map, map search and give you the location of the closest places that sell hot dogs or pizza or whatever you did or whatever you clicked on. It was funny, it was amusing. And that would totally be an A for this kind in this kind of context. So, let's see another kind of one. So one of the devices I love are Raspberry Pis. Raspberry Pis are tiny little computers. They're anywhere from I think $10 to $35 depending on the power, but they are actually computers at this point. Like you can actually like daily drive some of these to make stuff. But what you can do, but what they're useful for is, and they've been around for maybe a decade at this point. This is what one looks like typically. It's got a powerful enough thing that you can do web browsing on it and play YouTube videos, which is, if you think about it, that's like 90% of what you're going to be doing on the web anyway. So you can actually like get it inside of a keyboard like this, which is pretty cool. But notice that it has all these connections, and these are for connecting to devices and stuff. So these are very useful for making like projects. And one of my favorite things that I like to see that I love laser is a laser tripwire. It's a pretty cool project. So there's this projects.raspberrypi.org that gives you ideas and and like directions on how to build stuff. So here is an idea of this. And let me go ahead and stop sharing for a second because I need to reshare and optimize for video clip and share screen, share.
The laser pointer gaffer taped to the skirting board, and if we look over here, I've got my Raspberry Pi sitting in its box with the straw sticking out there and the laser pointer shining into that. If you want to make sure that the laser's there, what we can do is we can turn the lights off, and then we can blow a little bit of flour. We can just about see the laser. There we go. We can turn the lights back on now, and then we can get some unsuspecting person to walk through the laser and set it off. And then when they walk back out again, and we can see whether it works with dogs. Loki, come. Yes.
So as you can see, you know, that's definitely an amusing project. And there were some suggestions about there, such as also rigging up a phone to take a picture, or, oh, I've detected someone, send a tweet or an email to alert me. So the directions in here tell you how to build this and how to program it, but they don't tell you that extra bit. And that extra bit is what would make your final project be worthy of an A, such as, oh, and send out and automate it to log into my Twitter and send a tweet or something about an intruder or take a picture. Like you probably heard about somebody who built, like you might have seen a story about a person who built a Twitter bot that tweeted at Comcast whenever his internet speeds were below the advertised limit, you know, something like that. So tell us what you need. You need a Raspberry Pi, a breadboard, a capacitor, a light resistant diode. If you go to Micro Center, by the way, you'd probably be able to get help with all of these kind of tools and stuff. Or if you go onto the Raspberry Pi Discord or IRC or something, you could probably ask for questions on how to build this. Then basically the idea is, okay, how do we detect a broken beam, which is what we're doing here? Okay. How do you measure light? Okay, and then you have a bunch of function. Then here is the code you need to do this on Raspberry Pi, where basically we have these wires that are connected, and now we can read these things. Okay. And then I need a hint on how to do these. So these are built to be some stuff. Okay, now how do you make sound? And then how do you build it? And then showing up how you can basically boot up the project with cron, so that whenever you turn on the thing, you don't have to log into it. It will automatically turn on, and it's no longer, so you no longer have to treat it as a computer, but treat it as a device. Okay, so, right, and what's next? So doing this plus the what's next, that would be considered an A in my book, right? There's tons of projects for Raspberry Pi that you can look at. And it's just basically, when you have a computer, you can suddenly like do amazing tasks. Okay. So that was going to be the next thing, which is, should I use Pygame to make an interactive 2D game? So what you should use depends on what kind of game you want to make. If you're making a 2D game, you want to use, you can always try, if you want to learn how to use Unity or Unreal to make a 2D game, use Unity and Unreal to learn how to make a 2D game if you want to do those. You can also use Pygame if you want to still work in Python. So because there's a lot of resources on how to make games in Pygame, okay, as well as, so this is the textbook I've linked to in the syllabus, Automate the Boring Stuff. This book does not go over Pygame, but this book right over here does, Making Games with Python Pygame, Invent with Python Pygame, which goes over basically from scratch how to build 10 different games. And so he brings you the source code and then walks through each part of the source codes of that source code on how he builds it. And the games go up in levels of complexity. And if you, again, decide to follow this, then you'll want to add on to it, right? You can't just submit his code as your own, right? But you can certainly say, I use this as the basis, and then I added on to this and made it my own, and I use different assets and stuff. One popular kind of stuff, one kind of series of games I like are that I've learned to appreciate are visual novels, which are essentially choose your own adventure games, essentially. And one that came out recently that I really enjoyed was Doki Doki Literature Club, which if you haven't played it, it's amazing. And if you're easily frightened or scared, do not play it. If you are easily disturbed, do not play it. It is amazing. But if horror isn't your thing, don't play it, because it is actually a horror game dressed up as a cute dating game, which is the entire point of it. Yeah. Although the game initially appears to be a lighthearted dating simulator, it is in fact a psychological horror game that extensively breaks the fourth wall. So it is, but here's the thing. How was it built? It was built in RenP, which is a free software engine built in Python for making visual novels. So if you want to make a visual novel style game or a choose your own adventure style game, there's a framework that exists in Python that has been extensively used. I know, and choose your own adventure may be a bit silly in the kind of game, kind of genres that you have, but I enjoyed the old choose your own adventure kind of games. You don't often get second person perspective novels where you are the person being involved, right? There's something different. There's something different about the experience of the story when the narrative says it's happening to you, right? So that would be fun, right? And that ends up being more of a literature project than anything else, but it's still fun. It's still fine for 1051. And it's great, these kind of games. So I want, and so this should give you an idea that I am casting a very wide and very flexible net. Okay. Here's another thing I do. All right. So I'm going to subject you to my hobby, which is I write music on occasion. I've been not writing music since about spring break, because that was when Elden Ring came out, and that's what's been eating most of my free time. But a lot of times I like to remake, I like to take remakes of let's see, video game music. And do I have anything over here that is, let's see. So this will load up. So this is a remix from a Game Boy game called Final Fantasy Legend 1, or sorry, no, The Final Fantasy Legend, or Makai Toshi Saga, as it was released in Japan, and then marketed as a Final Fantasy game in the US because, you know, they wanted to capitalize on that Final Fantasy money, which became a big hit here. And I, you know, I do music a lot, and I have fun with them, with writing music. So what I used, though, part of the tool was, and I like to do remixes and orchestral stuff. Like, it was originally like bleeps and bloops, you know? Let's see, do I have this? Yeah, so it sounded something like this, I think. Is it loaded up on here? No. About here? Nope. No, these are loaded up correctly on this. That's what happens when you transfer things between multiple computers. Let's see. So, one second. So this is how it originally sounded. Something like this. Oh, it's not going. Interesting. Oh, because it's not anywhere near that. Interesting. Well, I'm not going to troubleshoot why it is not working right now. It's not worth your time to do that. But the point being, if I go back to the original over here, is that this entire stuff all this was generated by a computer. Like, I didn't write this, the computer wrote this. I just simply fed it the original piece, and then I asked it, hey, can you continue it on in a way that sounds sensible? And I don't have all the samples right now. It's not all loading up. Yeah, for some reason this doesn't have all the samples built into there, but oh well. But the point being is that we have, is that, like, if you wanted to use machine learning to generate art, you can do that. Magenta.tensorflow.org, make music and art using machine learning. This is a Google-based project. Get started. And then you can work in either JavaScript or in Python. And they have these Colab Notebooks. What are Colab Notebooks? They're basically Python modules you can run in the browser. You just hit the button and it runs, which is kind of cool. Demos, which show you different ways they can do that. So different Colab books, music transcription. Basically, the idea is trying to listen to audio and generate stuff. Yes. Yeah, especially if you're doing making your own machine learning is way above kind of freshman stuff, but basically building something using machine learning is pretty cool because you'll learn something about the algorithm and the tools that are needed, right? Again, this is about the journey. Just be open about what you're doing, right? Don't say, I built this when it was somebody else's stuff that you're using, right? Say, I use this. This is a cool tool and I want to share it with the world, right? And there's cool things like that. So, again, going back to music, another thing you can do is try building your own synthesizer. right? Building your own program that kind of, right? So if you want to learn like at Max MSP, now, and you're in the music program, now's the time to learn Max MSP or one of its equivalents, right? So again, I'm very open with that kind of stuff. For those of you who use FL Studio, by the way, I should point out, which is a different music production program. If you go over here into options and go to the debugging log in FL Studio, let's see, info file about, no, not the debugging log. What am I looking for? But tools, macros, let's see. I found it by accident one day, and it was, and I haven't touched it in a few months. Not patterns, edit, tools, help. There is a Python interpreter built into this, is the point, and I'm just trying to find where they've hidden it, because there is log tools. That was the same thing I clicked on. Great job, Andrew. Great job. And not diagnostics, control creator. No, not that. Sorry, I don't know where it is. I just know that there is a button you click on. Manage plugins? No, that's plugins. File settings, general settings, all that stuff about info. Debug. Okay, I can't find it, but I know that for those of you who are interested in this kind of stuff, there is the way FL Studio has a Python. FL Studio has a native Python interpreter built into it, and you can use that to communicate with MIDI devices. Which, if you don't know what a MIDI device is, that's basically any electronic instrument ever made since the 80s. So you can use Python to create custom scripts for what happens when something is connected or you do certain sequences. So you can do a lot of stuff with that with Python. All right. So, all right. Now, other questions about final projects and stuff. Yes. GitHub? I thought I did. Did I not? So, okay. Videos, go to home. Go to lecture recordings. And then this top video is a playlist. So scroll down and yeah, scams and GitHub. So no worries. And if you can't find that, then all you have to do is just hit watch on YouTube. And it'll bring up not only my channel, but it's an embedded playlist because I find that works best. Okay. Also, if you need more directions, you can check out the previous semesters where I talk about the final project in GitHub on how to use that. There are extensive tutorials online on how to use GitHub. It is not as hard as it seems. really, again, you'll probably just want to use the built-in file manager for it. But the idea here is that you can build, is multiple people can work on editing the same file and it will track your changes. And so we can see, hey, you've been working on this. That's great. Do you have any examples on good finance-based projects besides the stock simulator? Excellent question. So in their project, actually, is something that relates to Monte Carlo. So in one of the Runestone projects, in the Runestone Monte Carlo project, there was actually a great idea, which is one of the things that we love using Monte Carlo for. Let's see. So no, Monte Carlo simulation. So number 12. So it's the second exercise over here, which is predicting stock prices. So that's always a fun finance-based one, which is predicting the prices of a stock based off of their historical performance. So, so this, for instance, is Apple training data from 2006 to 2000. To 2000, let's see, it's all the way through to 2010. So quite a bit of data there with the stock like that. And the idea here is based on that previous performance, and the idea here is that previous performance and previous events are a great indicator of what's going to happen in the future. And so kind of trying to predict things like that. Another fun one was a homework from my algorithms class, which was finding out seeing if you could detect, which was like, write an algorithm that can detect if there is a positive cycle in currency trading. E.g., can you trade currencies in such a way that you can end up with more money than you started with? So, and as to why don't we do that and get free money? And the answer is because when you play in a market, you affect the market, right? That's a big difference. That's one of the things that simulations have to take into account, that when you play in a market and you start moving large amounts of money, that does affect the price of something, right? If you buy a lot of something, that affects the price and how things, and also people, if you start making a lot of money, people are going to notice and they're going to start also going in on you. You do have to create a account for GitHub, and you can use whatever email you want for that. That doesn't matter. You just have to tell me that when you submit these things, you just want to point me to your GitHub, essentially. So you'll submit a link to your GitHub. There's no cap on the modifications you can make for a small game. You can tweak the game as much as you want. 2D side scrollers are always good kind of ideas of what to try to do. So that's basically 2D side scrollers like Mario. So basically you're jumping and avoiding stuff. Those are classic games. Everybody kind of understands how they work. And thus everybody understands like the things that you generally have, which is the ability to move and the ability to jump and otherwise avoid obstacles. A top-down 2D game like Zelda. Again, Unity and Unreal, both very popular platforms these days because building a graphics engines is a lot of work. And as far as yes, they have, pricing and plans, but if you go for individual, student, personal, that's free to do these things, right? And the idea here, and even if you're not a student, right, even if you don't go for the student one, notice it says, so long as you get less than revenue or funding for less than $100,000 in the last 12 months for stuff, then for game, then you can use the personal. The difference is what, like the splash screen, right? Right, they have a splash screen for stuff. Unreal Engine, again, also is a way to do that. I'm not particular to which, both of those are used very heavily. Both engines are very mature, very powerful, and have a great community behind them. And basically what you're trying to learn is the beginnings of trying to do of trying to do stuff like that. Okay. Of course, nothing is stopping you from going in the complete opposite direction and making a clone, your own hack clone. Okay. So NetHack, of course, is the greatest game that has ever been made, according to some people. The greatest game you'll ever play, NetHack, which is completely text-based. Let's see. So, and all those icons mean something in that game. And you can find tutorials on how to build these kind of old school style dungeon crawlers. And if you don't think they're popular, check out Dwarf Fortress at some point, because that entire game, I don't know, like somebody just, it's insane the amount of effort that the developers have put into this game, to the point that it simulates the building of an entire planet that's geologically sound, that there's enough interesting events that go on in the planet so that it has a history, so it feels like you're in an actual fantasy world. But all this, but as you can see, this is all ASCII in the background. All symbols just that are basically showing the layout of some kind of terrain and stuff. If you're not sure about too many games, check out, or different kind of games, check out itch.io, where there's a lot of indie games. A lot of indie style games are at itch.io. And that will give you an idea of the more experimental kind of games you can make. You don't have to make a game, but most people seem to be interested in making games. If you're not interested in making games, apps and web tutorials are there. But it'll give you but don't be afraid to be experimental with games. You know, building something for the sake of having something being built to tell a story that's odd or makes people feel something. Right? And it doesn't have to be a complete game. You can just simply say, this is you can easily get an A by saying, hey, this is the first steps for me making something much bigger, because I want you to learn something. That is my end goal, right? I'm trying to throw you into the deep end and show that you are much more competent than you think you are, and you know more than you think you are able to. Please send me emails with your ideas for your final projects. I'm going to end this lecture early, so that if you have some ideas that you want to talk to me about, I'll sit around and listen to them. But otherwise, if you have an idea and you're worried about it, please let me know. On Thursday, I'll start talking about regular expressions, which is one of the problems we'll be talking, and the first of the 3 problems that we'll be talking about for the final exam.
So, like, I've projects that I did before.
Mm-hmm.
So can I use them and obviously build it?
Yes.
And they're in different languages. They're in JavaScript.
Sure.
And only front and on.
Yeah, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Just let me know, be specific about what you've already done and what you're putting and what additional features you're adding.
Okay.
I have a question about Colab.
Yeah.
I missed the lab Friday. I'm halfway there. I emailed my team.
You can have a couple more days if you need to work on it.
Thank you so much. Do I need to that I need to demo, right?
Yes, you do, but the demoing takes place after you submit it. So just worry about submitting it first.
All right. And for the final project, is that okay if I use like out of the boundary like Java or C?
Yes. Yes. Any languages, any mainstream language is pretty much good.
Thank you so much.
So for Pygame, are we allowed to use the code that you shared?
Yes.
All right. And then for the final project, so I want to do something about like genetics, about like statistical analysis, right? And so I'm not sure. So like I feel like I've come up with like 3 things that like 3 stages like of the I will do, I hope that I might do. And I'm not sure. So like what I want to do is I want to be able to take like phenotype, like offspring and be able to, if I know what the parents are and what the type of parents, be able to make a chi-square table. Right?
Okay.
So would it be able to, like, how would I be able to figure out the parents?
This is
what
outside
the-
my scope of expertise.
Oh, I thought, so would I be able to find like ratios, like hard code ratios of like what the children are?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Biology is not necessary. I know
Okay.
enough to talk to biologists, but I don't know enough about biology.
Okay,
myself.
would I be able to send you an email? About
Yes.
Like that? Okay.
And so that'd be something to ask biologists. But if you're interested in genetics and stuff, I might look up genetic algorithms. If you know what those,
Okay.
if you've never heard of those.
I've never-
They're algorithms that you give them a goal. They're basically use kind of they're machine learning algorithms. They do natural selection to kind of on kind of different algorithm inputs to kind of, and you have some kind of fitness function and they try to become more fit. So
what's
a genetic algorithm. So an example is, you know, the game, the Chrome game, the T-Rex Chrome game. You know, the T-Rex Chrome game that when the internet is down and you try to launch Chrome. Genetic algorithm, right? AI learns to play the Chrome. So basically,
I know code bullet.
so it's
I got
learned.
some sprites and chucked them in. I also fine-tuned the collisions so that they fit the sprites and match the original game.
So basically, it learns how to play the game on its own. So those are genetic algorithms. So if you're interested in genetics and kind of those kind of and descendants kind of stuff, you might want to take a look at that.
Okay.
But nothing wrong. That's not to say anything's wrong with your original idea. Yes.
I was wondering if you could help me with the CLI for GitHub. I can use the commands like git clone works, but I can't save my credentials. Like every time I try and do like clone, it asks me to sign in again. It's kind of
Annoying.
a pain. Yeah, because like you have to
Yeah,
use
I
the
don't know.
email.
I don't necessarily know how to do that for Linux. So where are
I'm in like the project.
so you're so get okay. So I don't. There are some ways to save your credentials in there, but by Linux by default doesn't necessarily. It doesn't do that because security. So, but look it up. There is a way to, but also there are GitHub managers. Like you can get a GitHub app from. There's a GitHub desktop app that you can download.
Yeah.
And that I find to be much more useful. But if you want to use the CLI, yeah, you're going to have to put on your password a bit, or have to have it saved into your computer. And I don't remember the specific. It's been a number of years. It's been a year or two since I've used Linux, or used it as a daily driver, I should say. Okay.
I want to know if you were to do a visual library for the final.
Uh-huh.
What would have to be original?